program, we introduce you to three very talented women, Andrea and Betty Wong in Marcia Godbout. Andrea specializes in painting incredibly beautiful scenes of nature. Marcia Godbout is an illustrator that creates photorealistic works using colored pencils, and the results are incredible. Up first is Betty Wong. Originally hailing from Hong Kong, Betty first began painting in what is considered a traditional Chinese style. When she moved to Canada, Betty began exploring different styles of painting. Although she is not formally educated, with the guidance of a few art lessons, Betty has managed to evolve into a diverse artist that is skillfully adept in watercolors and acrylics, and is continuing to explore and innovate to satisfy her desire to grow as an artist.
Art makes me feel like I can do something. I am making something that's really personal, individual. That's me, saying this is me. And also how I view the world, how I look at life. So to me, it's very important. It's a kind of a spiritual, I would say, retreat, for me. I can stay at home to paint like the whole day without going out. And of course, I do need to go out sometimes, but I'm not that like a person who really works really very detailed. Like if you look at that, I'm a person basically without any patience, and I think art is a good way to make me sit down and okay, do it now, and be focused and be less distracted. I choose this medium first because I'm used to doing Chinese painting, which is a lot of water in it and everything, and so I moved to watercolor, so it's like a natural move. Watercolor is more colorful and use a lot of other textures and things like that I can play with. So I started with watercolor, and then I moved to acrylic as well when I tried out something new about can't remember, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and it's still a water medium. Now I'm doing some mixed media as well, like watercolor mixed with acrylic, and it's a lot of fun. Yeah. The main difference between Chinese painting and what I'm doing now, I believe it's the surface that we paint on. For Chinese painting, we paint on rice paper. And the rice paper usually there are 3 layers, and it sort of sinks in the watercolor, the color that we use, or the ink mainly, sinks into the paper, and it doesn't really shows the transparency. But for watercolor, you have a different surface, like all these cotton paper. And the other difference is, I think, Chinese painting is more about painting the mood, painting the feelings, and it's not like a 3-dimensional or a realistic kind of touch on it. Even if you paint a flower, it seldom gives you like the front and the back, very, very rare. Or even if it's landscape, it's like a graphic representation of it, the feeling of it. Whereas if you look at some realistic paintings like watercolor or acrylic or oil, it's totally different. So, so the transition is, for me, it's first of all the color and the paper that you paint on. So it's a totally different kind of medium or expression. My inspiration is from everyday life, and the way I see the world, I guess. And I am always looking for change. I do not want to stick to one subject all the time, because I believe that's how artists should evolve, and that's my own personal feeling only. I mean, it doesn't apply to everyone. I'm constantly on the look for change and for something new that challenges myself. So the inspiration is from everywhere. Like when I travel, I came back and then I had some idea of what I want to paint the place that I visited, or maybe even, when people show me pictures and, oh, this is a nice one, but although I'm not going to paint the pictures. But it's also looking at myself, what I haven't done before, just try to do something different, you know. So that's how I ended up with, you know, I don't know whether it's good or not. It's a lot of different kind of subjects. I would consider myself a self-learner. Although I took lessons in Chinese paintings, and when I came over, like when I switched to watercolor, I also took lessons with a few artists, you know, on and off in workshops. But every time I sort of picked up something from them, and I tried to develop my own style, and that's what I'm still doing right now. Hopefully people can see the paintings and see, oh, this is from Betty, right? And I'm still exploring, and there's no end to art, right? And that's the beauty of it. Art is important because it makes lives more interesting. Without art, I think, can you imagine a world without color? Or can you imagine a world without any design at all? Like, why are people excited about clothing, about the new pair of clothing? Because there's design behind it, that's art behind it. About places that is interior design, like a home that is all placed with all the colors, you know, coordinating. So life would be so dull without art. And it also gives people a room to breathe, you know, it's the soul, like the soul that breathes in the art, you know. I can't imagine without art what the world would be. And it's also a way for us to sort of look at the world in a different manner, different perspective. Yeah, I think that's why it's important. What does art mean to me? I think it means a consolation for me, a personal satisfaction, and also something that it's from the soul. Like I really cannot imagine myself without it.
When I first saw Andrea N's work, I was blown away by her rendition of landscapes, and in particular, water. I would best describe it as stylized realism. Andrea was trained as a commercial artist, and it was at school that she was first introduced to gouache, a type of paint that is normally associated with commercial art and advertising. Although her education trained her for the world of advertising, Andrea chose to pursue a career in a field outside the art world. Instead, she chose to paint for herself, for the sheer enjoyment of it, and today divides her time between pursuing her artistic interests, raising a family, and also being an active board member of the Richmond Hill Group of Artists.
Describing my work as realistic is interesting for me to hear because it's not my goal. When I paint, what I'm painting are lights and shadows and shapes. When I'm looking at my reference, when I'm looking at something that inspires me, it's something often that has a lot of sunshine. Sunshine through trees, sunshine on the water, because those create all these different patterns and shapes. And so that's what I feel I'm painting. I'm not necessarily painting water or a tree, I'm painting those shapes and colors. At the end, they do look realistic, but it's not my goal that they look that way. My focus over the years has been either landscapes with water in them, because we do spend a lot of time camping and in cottage country, or winter. I love the shadows in the winter that the tree trunks and branches make on the snow in the forest, which is not unlike the organic and curvy reflections that you get in water when there's just a little bit of a wave, not the mirror image reflection, but that reflection you get when there's just a little bit of ripple in the lake. And it's really quite remarkable, the different shapes that come out in the water. So I'm inspired by nature because I love being outside. I love my home and my community, but in another life, I would be in a small town in cottage country, and that would be where I would be living. So I believe that when I'm painting, I'm surrounding myself by the places that I like to be in. They're almost like windows into this world that we love to escape to on the weekend or on holidays. Because I'm really working in small sections at a time, the painting evolves very slowly. So there are times in a painting where I feel you second guess yourself, is this going to work the way I'm hoping it'll work? And you just, I'll tell myself, okay, stay the course. You've started this, just stay the course and see how it goes. So that process can be very slow at the beginning of a painting. You walk away more often, you don't spend as many hours consecutively sitting. And then it reaches a point where you step back and you go, yeah, it's going to work. It's working the way I'm thinking. I can see it will continue to work the way I'm thinking. And then it's like you've reached the top of that mountain and you start to go down. And that's when I can sit and spend hours painting. Because there could still be many, many hours of painting left. But I've reached the point in the painting where I know that I'm quite confident I'm achieving what I want to achieve. And I'm not second guessing myself anymore. And now I can just let the rest of it spill out in a very relaxed, in a very satisfied manner, as opposed to at the beginning where there might be a little bit of hesitation and doubt. It was very interesting for me to see as well the reaction that people had to those paintings. And over again, I heard people commenting on the water in the painting. They were drawn to the water. And so from that, the next step was, well, I would like to now try a series that just has that strong water that we're all drawn to, and bigger. I want to paint bigger. So these paintings are all 4 feet by 2 feet, and they just focus on the water. And the goal is to capture the landscape in the water and what people see in it, whether it's trees or rocks, summer or winter. It's different in every painting. Before I start a painting, before I put anything down on the canvas or on the board, I've already got an image in my mind, and I'm sure most artists do, of what it is that they want to put down on that canvas. So they've looked at their reference and they've seen things that they like, the color of it, the composition of it. Where's my interest going to be? How am I gonna? What is it I want to put on that canvas or on that board? That's decided. That's in my mind. That's already a picture before I start, and then the process of putting that onto the canvas or the board starts. I paint, I would say systematically. I paint in sections. I don't follow rules like, painting from dark to light or light to dark. I tend to jump from one area, foreground to background. I guess it just depends on what it is I'm painting, because I also don't sketch out what I'm painting. I will draw myself with my paintbrush a few guidelines, and then I start. So the painting, where I'm choosing to start painting, is already, it replaces the drawing. So that becomes my drawing, so that I can work on this section, because now I've got that tree, and so now I can work here. Or I've got the horizontal, some lines for water, and now I can start filling in sections as I work my way to complete it. I don't overlap colors though. Everything is painted one color beside the next color, beside the next color. So it's quite systematic in the approach of putting it down. Art is important to me because I find that for me, it slows me down. It forces you to be present. It's a place and a time where it's like a walk in the forest. It's very calming, it's very focusing. It's a place where I can lose myself in what I'm doing, but at the same time, I realized that I can also, go through things in my mind that I may be thinking about, but in a very calm and in a very focused way, no pressure. The big thing is you're present. When you paint, you're present. You're not running around doing, your chores or your various to-do lists. They get put on the back burner.
Drawing, in my opinion, is one of the most difficult mediums to master, especially when you are able to create drawings that are described as photorealistic. Marcia Godbout is an artist that specializes in that medium. Marcia studied illustration from Northern Illinois University and began her career doing commercial work. When she discovered the artist Tricia Romance, whom she cites as a huge influence on her work, she began to paint using watercolors and eventually segued into drawing using colored pencils, the medium that she continues to work in today.
I chose colored pencil because I love being able to get detail. I'm very much a detail person. So when I'm drawing hair or fur, I can be very precise. I love the results that I get because I layer the colors so they come out like pastels often, and I like being compared to pastel work because it's one of my favorite mediums. What I like to draw are mostly people that I love. Then I really have a connection to the piece. It's very inspirational to be able to capture a likeness, and it's just a great feeling to work on a piece of someone that you know and love. To start a piece, that's usually the least enjoyable for it. It's kind of like starting a sewing project. You can't sew the project until you cut it out. So this is kind of like starting a sewing project. I start out by mapping the features out on a piece of paper, whatever color I've chosen to use. And the paper I usually select. It's kind of like the picture selects the paper itself. I look at it and I know what's going to look good with this particular piece. So I map out the features, and that's really tedious because if you're drawing a portrait, everyone has eyes, a nose, and a mouth. So the key to getting a likeness is to find out the specific proportions in everybody's face, and they're all different. Even identical twins are different. So I get a really good observation of the shape of someone's eye and how it relates to the shape of their nose and their mouth and how tall their head is compared to how wide. And so I just select all those differences and get a piece mapped out. Then when I start, I always start with the eyes and work my way outward. It's interesting that with portraits, if you don't get the eyes correct, it doesn't look like that person. You can be a little bit off on the nose or a little bit off on the mouth. But if you don't get the eyes, it just doesn't work. So I start with the eyes and move out, and then sometimes I make changes as I go. I make something lighter or darker, or decide to change the lighting on it or something like that. But then once I get going, it's just a matter of working until I feel like I'm finished. A piece takes quite a while to finish. It depends a lot on the detail. If I'm drawing, say, a dog and it's all fur, that's a lot of texturizing, so it takes a lot longer as opposed to a baby, which has very little hair. So it can be anywhere from 10 to 20, 25 hours on a piece. Sometimes there are 2 people in a piece. And of course, you've got 2 people, it takes a little bit longer. But working, especially in color, I work by layering colors, and that gives it a nice depth, but it takes a long time. And I work in little tiny strokes so that you don't see pencil marks. I work in little tiny circles. So it can take quite a while, and sometimes if it's a bigger piece, then that just adds more to the time. I do art because, number one, I love art. And it was something that I had really wanted to do. It can be very stressful, so it's not something that I sit down, I want to relax, so I'm gonna draw. Because it can be very intense, especially if you're working on a deadline. You've got to be really disciplined and really attentive and really make sure that all those proportions are right. So I don't do it to relax, but I do enjoy when I do it. And when I get a pleased customer, that's so rewarding. I love when somebody's like, "Marcia, I love your piece." That's really rewarding for me. Or if I've done a piece of someone that I love, like my dad, I did a portrait of him. When I was working on that piece, I think it's probably one of the most special ones I've done because it was my dad. So that is really inspirational for me. That motivates me. It makes me want to create something beautiful to honor them. If I could sum up art in a statement, I would say that art is expressive. Art is creative. Art makes you think as well as make you take a second look at what's around you. If you're looking to draw something, you have to look at it specifically, and you'll pick up a lot more details if you're drawing it than if you're not really observing it. So art to me is expression and learning to see what's around us.
John Updike is quoted as saying, "What art offers is space, a certain breathing room for the spirit." I believe this to be true for both the artist and the art lover. Whether you enjoy landscapes, animals, or portraiture, there is a certain pleasure to be had from beholding a piece of artwork that speaks to you, and it is a feeling that can be reproduced upon each viewing. I hope you have enjoyed today's program and have been moved by these talented artists. To learn more about Andrea and Betty Wong and Marcia Godbout, please visit our website for details. Thank you for watching Color and Vision Portraits in Art. We'll see you next time.